Hi, I'm Karen. Welcome to my new YouTube channel, Rodopi Art. This is the first of many broadcasts, I hope. Today I'm painting a still life in oil paint. Just something simple to show a few things like what materials to use, how to compose an interesting study. Artists have been notorious for being very secretive about what they do, but I'm hoping to share some of the things that I know, and I hope you enjoy it. Please leave some comments or ask me some questions down below. Hi there, this is the canvas that I'll be using. You can buy these ready primed from a local art shop. They cost about €5, and in this case this one's about 40 centimetres by 40 centimetres. I'm then going to cover this with an acrylic ground, and in this case it's going to be a combination of these, so it's going to be a dark reddy orange, and I'll be using a really large brush for that. Remember, acrylic is water-based, so it'll have to dry before you can put any oil on it, and that takes about an hour. The reason that you put a ground on a white canvas like this is because that white is just far too stark. So giving it a colour that's going to be the key theme for the rest of the painting is a good idea to start with. Then you can work from dark back up to light. When I've got the ground on there, I'll then map out the still life subject onto the canvas with some of these drawing tools. So I've got an 8B pencil there, some oil pastels, or I could use charcoal, and that's a nice deep charcoal, so you can make nice marks with it. And these are the oil colours that I will use. Quite a selection of blues and reds, and your obvious white over there. And these are the solvents and mediums. So we've got turpentine, glazing medium, and this is Liquin. Now Liquin is a drying accelerator and thinner. And here we have just a little palette which you can pick up from any art shop, or if you don't want to have one that looks like that, you could use a bathroom tile maybe. Anything's possible. Today I'm going to be painting this particular still life in oil paint. This is a classic still life composition with 5 objects which are closely related. Showing light and dark, it is perfectly suited to oil paint. Be aware of the shadows and reflections and the negative spaces that are in this relationship. As it's daylight, the light will change over time, so be aware that those reflections and shadows will change. So here I am in the studio looking at the still life setup, and I'm just measuring the proportions so that I can map out where everything is on the canvas. The canvas has been primed with the acrylic, and I'm using a pencil just to work out where the proportions of everything go. So at this stage, really I'm just finding out where the relationships of the objects are, and I'm just sketching that out. I'm measuring the proportions of distance using one of the plums as a unit of measurement. I would make the edge of the table a complete horizontal in the plane on the canvas, but decide that that's not really going to sit very well. So I'm going to tilt it using a very simple perspective device, making the bottom edge of the table non-parallel to the top level. So I'm really just mapping out and measuring at this stage. Now I'm using the darker charcoal so that you can see where everything is. And I start drawing each plum which has a relationship to its neighbour. Negative spaces are very important at this stage. By that I mean the gaps in between where one plum is and where one plum stops and starts. Just sketching out some shading here, just to give it a bit of weight. That helps me see where everything is. Now, lots of decisions have to be made at this particular point, and I've just drawn an arrow there just to show where my main light source is. Pretty obvious really, it's coming from the top, but sometimes it might be coming directly from one side, and it's just a little notation for me to decide and to remember where my light is going to be hitting the plums. So here I am, squeezing out all the paint that I'm going to need in enough quantities for the rest of the painting. So we have colours French ultramarine and cerulean blue. I'm going to use sap green, alizarin crimson, indigo. I never use black. What you're seeing over on the palette there is actually indigo, which is an incredibly dark blue. But using black, I always find, makes all the colours very muddy. So I'm using two primaries here, as well as white, which I'm squeezing out now. And those primaries are in fact French ultramarine and alizarin crimson. I'm not using a yellow at the moment with this, because there are no yellows in the actual composition at the moment. All the colours that are on the left hand side are in the blue and green range, and all the colours that I'll be using in the red and yellow range are on the right hand side. The reason for this is so that they don't get too mixed up whilst you're painting and end up being one big brown mess. Here I am at the canvas starting to paint. So I'm actually using the very darkest colour. It's not pure indigo, it has a little bit of a kind of purple in it too, which reflects the actual colour of the plums. And I'm doing this so that you can see that they have a spherical appearance, and this helps to understand their actual three-dimensional shape. I'll speed up the film so you can see the process very quickly. Just looking at the proportions of the collection of plums, the far left one is too big, and as it is set back from the rest of the group, it would therefore appear much smaller. One of the beauties of oil paint is its versatility, and unlike other mediums, the possibility to radically alter your drawing even several hours into it. I simply scrape off the offending plum and repaint it. I'm about to mix up some white paint very thickly so that I can cover the background using a palette knife. Here I go, drawing it down straight towards the edge of the composition's table. I've used the paint across the palette so that I've picked up some yellow and a little bit of blue in there as well, so that it's not just pure white. And I'm drawing that up and moving it across the paper, across the canvas, so that it forms a barrier and a white background. At this stage, I have decided that the composition is not balanced onto the canvas, so I'm going to cut one of the plums in half and also use the knife itself inside the composition. Normally, one would take the composition into account to balance inside the canvas, which usually is either portrait or landscape format. But in this case, it is a square, so I have decided to place these objects inside and add them to the composition. If you find it difficult to imagine the shapes that you want to place onto the composition, cut some out of paper and offer them up to the picture plane, and then you can see whether they work or not. This is the finished study of the plums. It actually took about 2 hours in total to complete. And I would do an exercise like this to continue and improve my techniques and skills. As an artist, see if you can set something like this up and share the results with me. And don't forget to subscribe and tell any of your artist friends to join and watch too. Please leave any comments down below and I'll see if I can answer any of your questions. Most of all, have fun and enjoy it.